In this episode, the intersection of mental health and compliance in Whom Gods Destroy.
Compliance, the final frontier. Tom Fox is the voyager of trekking through compliance. His mission? To explore the original series and seek out and share what it can teach you about compliance. Here's your host, Tom Fox.
Episode 69, Whom Gods Destroy. In this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, we consider the episode Whom Gods Destroy, which aired on January 3, 1969, and occurred on Stardate 5718.3. Story synopsis. Kirk and Spock beam down to Elba 2 to deliver a revolutionary medicine to the insane asylum located there, which houses the 15 incorrigible insane criminals of the Federation. Elba 2 is surrounded by a poisonous atmosphere. Inmate Marta warns Kirk and Spock that their host is not really Governor Donald Corey, but they do not believe him, as she is insane. Upon viewing Corey's cell, however, Kirk and Spock discover that the inmate and former Starfleet Captain Garth of Izar has imprisoned Corey in his cell and is running the facility with the aid of the other inmates. Garth imprisons Kirk with Corey and destroys the medicines that Kirk and Spock have brought. Garth is able to change form at will using the technique of cellular metamorphosis and attempts to gain control of the Enterprise to escape and punish his former mutinous crew by impersonating Kirk. Garth is thwarted by the password Kirk has arranged with Scotty when Scotty queries Garth, who is impersonating Kirk, Queen to Queen's level 3. Garth does not know the proper response to this problem in 3D chess. The proper response is Queen to King's level 1. Garth then invites Kirk to dinner with the inmates and Mr. Spock. At the banquet, the green poet inmate Marta recites Shakespeare and performs an exotic dance, which Spock finds similar to a dance performed by Vulcan school children. We found out that Garth has charted more new worlds than any other man in history, and then tried to destroy Antos 4. When Kirk refuses to reveal the counter password, Garth tortures Corey in a specially modified therapeutic chair. When Kirk still refuses, he is strapped in and tortured. However, Marta convinces Garth to let her try more persuasive techniques. She begins making love to Kirk, then attacks him with a knife. She arranges for Kirk to be freed, and he luckily steps in, and Spock luckily steps in and nerve pinches her before she can stab Kirk. Kirk and Spock make it to the control room where they contact the Enterprise. However, Kirk smells a rat and demands that Spock give the counterside instead of himself. Spock, who is actually Garth in his metamorphosized form, then puts the force field back on and assumes his true form as the security team cannot beam down because of the force field being in place. Kirk attempts to force the field back up, but is stunned by Garth before he can do so. Garth then holds a ceremony in which he declares himself Emperor of the Universe, Marta his consort, and Kirk as his heir apparent. He then threatens to use a powerful new explosive he has invented on Marta, who's dragged out into the poisonous atmosphere. Garth then carries out his threat and commands Spock be brought in. Spock pretends to be knocked out in his cell and then nerve pinches the two guards who have come to fetch him. He makes his way to the control room where he's confronted by what appear to be two identical Captain Kirks. Spock tries to distinguish the real Kirk from the imposter Kirk by asking what maneuver was used to defeat the Romulan ship near Tau Ceti. One Kirk correctly gives the maneuver as the Cochrane deceleration, but the other Kirk points out that this is a classic battle maneuver. The two Kirks then hash it out, and Spock is able to identify Garth when the real Kirk tells Spock to stun them both in order to ensure the safety of the Enterprise. Control of the institution is returned to Dr. Corey, and Garth and his colleagues are cured using the new drugs. Fun fact. According to an interview published in Star Trek Lives, Leonard Nimoy complained about the discrepancies in the script of this episode, including the inconsistencies in his own character. He blamed the director for making changes in the script to focus on action rather than intelligent problem solving, and felt the changes were a form of lying to the audience. He also complained about Spock not being able to tell a difference between the real Kirk from the imposter. Nimoy was so upset he sent the memo to both the producer, Freddie Friedberg, and the Paramount Television executive in charge of production, Douglas S. Kramer. Unfortunately, his thoughts were not heeded. So what are some of the interesting tidbits from this episode? Well, it's the only episode where Spock performs a simultaneous double Vulcan nerve pinch on two distinct alien species. In this episode, a human, Garth, performs a Vulcan neck pinch while impersonating Spock, although it is possible that Marta is playing along with the deception. This is also one of 4 episodes where Leonard Nimoy plays a character other than Spock. Those others were, of course, Is There No Truth in Beauty, Return Tomorrow, and Mirror, Mirror. Interestingly, in the United Kingdom, the BBC skipped this episode in all runs of the series through the early 1990s due to its content. I mentioned at the start of this podcast, it was on the intersection of mental health and compliance. Well, an official BBC statement read, quote, after careful consideration, a top-level decision was made not to screen the episodes entitled The Empath, Whom Gods Destroy, Plato's Stepchildren, and Miri, all because of the they dealt most unpleasantly with already unpleasant subjects of madness, torture, sadism, and disease. Whom Gods Destroy was finally shown for the first time on January 19, 1994. The UK satellite channel Sky had already acquired the rights to the banned show before the BBC did. Contrary to popular belief, the Tellarites in TOS had 3 fingers. Even in this episode, the fingers were sleeker in appearance than they were in Season 2. And this is the last appearance of the Orions in a live episode or movie until Enterprise Borderland. So lots going on in this episode. I hope you'll take a look at it and reconsider it, perhaps. I'd like to take this episode in a little bit different direction for the compliance professional and look at some specific strategies compliance in conjunction with HR can implement to support employees who may be dealing with trauma or other mental health issues in the workplace. First, establish a mental health informed workplace. Educate all employees from leadership to frontline staff about the impact of trauma and other mental health issues and the importance of compassionate mental health informed approach. Foster an organizational culture that prioritizes psychological safety, empathy, and a non-judgmental attitude towards those experiencing mental health issues. 2, provide mental health specific training and resources. Train managers and supervisors to recognize the signs and symptoms of mental health issues and how to have sensitive conversations with affected employees. Offer access to mental health informed counseling, support groups, and educational resources for employees. Collaborate with mental health professionals to develop a tailored training and support program. 3, implement flexible and accommodating policies. Develop flexible work arrangements, such as remote work, adjusted schedules, or reduced hours, to allow employees the time and space they need to address their mental health issues. Ensure leave policies, including paid time off and medical leave, are accessible and supportive for employees seeking treatment or recovery from mental health issues. Provide reasonable accommodations, such as quiet spaces or adjustment to job duties, to help employees manage their mental health needs. 4, foster peer support and community. Encourage the formation of employee resource groups or support networks where effective employees can connect, share experiences, and provide mutual aid. Organize team-building activities and social events that promote a sense of community and belonging, which can be beneficial for those dealing with mental health issues. Identify and train champions within your organization who can serve as peer-to-peer mentors and advocates. 5, prioritize mental health informed leadership. Ensure that leadership and management teams receive comprehensive training on mental health practices and the role of being an empathetic leader. Encourage leaders to model vulnerability, compassion, and a willingness to have open discussions about their own mental health issues. Incorporate mental health informed principles into your decision-making process and organizational policies. Provide ongoing support and follow-up. This is number 6. Establish regular check-in and wellness programs for employees who have experienced mental health issues to monitor their progress and provide continued support. Develop clear protocols for when and how to refer employees to external mental health professionals or other resources. Regularly evaluate the effectiveness of your organization's mental health initiatives and make adjustments as needed. By implementing these comprehensive strategies, compliance and HR professionals can create a workplace environment that is better equipped to support employees dealing with mental health issues, fostering resilience, well-being, and overall organizational success. I hope you'll join us in our next episode of Trekking Through Compliance when we take a look at Let That Be Your Last Battlefield.
If you enjoyed this episode of Trekking Through Compliance, you can help it grow by sharing it with the biggest Trek fan you know.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.